All right, let's just get right into it. We have all been there. You've spent months, maybe even years, totally immersed in your work. The research is finally done, and now you've got to do what feels like the hardest part of all, actually writing the thing, turning all that incredible work into a clear, compelling paper. It feels like a mountain, I know, but today we're going to break it down.
This quote really gets to the absolute heart of the matter. Writing isn't just about dumping your data on a page. It's an act of communication. It's about respecting your reader's time and their brain power. Your goal isn't just to be informative, it's to create something that people actually want to read. And that all starts with being thoughtful. It is so easy to think of writing as this tedious chore you have to get through after all the real work is done. But that is completely the wrong way to look at it. Communicating your findings isn't an afterthought. It is the final, crucial step of the research process itself. Honestly, without it, the work just isn't finished. In fact, and this is a big deal, there's a real ethical dimension to this. When you have valuable results but you just sit on them, that's basically an act of knowledge hoarding. You're holding back a piece of the puzzle that somebody else might desperately need for their own breakthrough. Publishing your work isn't just good for you, it's a responsibility you have to the entire scientific community. And look, beyond that big responsibility, the practical payoffs are just huge. It's literally how science moves forward. It's how your team builds its reputation, how you land those grants for your next project, and how you create a permanent record of what you contributed. It is a win for absolutely everyone involved. So how do we actually do it? How do we get it done effectively? Well, there's a little secret here, a very specific and kind of counterintuitive order to writing a paper that can completely change the game. It can turn a total struggle into a smooth, logical process. Seriously, think about it. You're sitting there staring at that blinking cursor on a blank page. You've got piles of data all around you. Where on earth do you even start? The introduction? The abstract? That question stumps just about everyone, but the answer is surprisingly simple, and I bet it's not what you think. Here it is. You don't start with the story, you start with the foundation. First, you write the methods section. That's the stuff you literally just finished doing, so it's fresh in your mind. Then you write the results, just presenting the data you collected. That's the solid core of your paper. It's only then that you build the narrative around it with the introduction and the discussion. And the very last things you write, the parts everyone reads first, the abstract and the title. All right, so let's dig into that first part, building your paper's core. We're going to look at those foundational sections that really set you up for success. Your methods section has one job and one job only: reproducibility. You need to write it like an incredibly detailed recipe. Be super honest and precise about exactly what you did, what you used, where you got it. The whole point is scientific integrity, right? You want somebody on the other side of the world to be able to follow your steps perfectly. And right after that, you present your results. This part is just the facts, the raw data, the figures, the tables, without any interpretation, just, here's what we found. Okay, once your methods and results are down on paper, now you could start building the narrative. The first part of that story is the introduction. And the absolute best way to structure it is to think of it like a funnel. You're guiding your reader from a really broad idea all the way down to your very specific work. So at the very top of the funnel, the widest part, you start broad. You're setting the stage. What's the big picture context here? Are we talking about the global climate crisis, a specific type of cancer? This is where you get your reader oriented and show them why this whole field is so important. Then, as we move into the middle of the funnel, you start to narrow things down. You've established the field, so now, what's the specific problem inside that field? What did previous studies miss? What question is still hanging out there, unanswered? This is where you create the perfect opening for your research to make its entrance. And finally, at the very tip of the funnel, you get right to the point. Bam! You state your specific hypothesis, and you say exactly what this paper is going to do to fill that gap you just pointed out. By the time someone finishes your intro, they know exactly why your work matters and what they're about to read. Okay, the whole body of your paper is basically done. Now, and I mean only now, are you ready to write the parts that make the first impression, the abstract and the title? Writing them last is key, because it guarantees they actually reflect the finished product. So that abstract, it's your 250-word elevator pitch to the entire world. Let's be real, for a lot of people, it's the only part of your paper they're ever going to read. So it has to be powerful, it has to be concise, and it's got to be packed with your most exciting findings. No pressure, right? So how do you write a great one? Honestly, the best way to get it is to see a direct comparison. So let's take a look at the anatomy of a bad abstract versus a really good one, both based on the exact same research. So on one hand, a bad abstract just wastes precious words on long historical backgrounds or super obvious stuff. It's vague, it's confusing, but a good abstract? It jumps right in. It tells you immediately what this paper is about. It gives you specific, exciting results with numbers, and it states a clear conclusion. It makes the reader immediately understand why they should care.
So we've covered all the mechanics, the nuts and bolts, but writing is also a really human and creative process. To really nail it, you have to get your mindset right and create an environment where you can do that deep work. You have to treat writing like the important, creative task that it is. Find your golden hours. Maybe that's 5 a.m., maybe it's 10 p.m. Make your workspace a place you actually want to be in. And please, don't be afraid to take a break. Walk away. Sometimes the best ideas show up when you're not even trying. And remember, the first draft is just about getting the ideas out. Just get it down on paper. You can make it pretty later.
You know, when it's all said and done, everything we've talked about really boils down to this one simple but totally profound piece of advice. Don't try to sound complicated or overly academic. Your job is to make your work easy for someone to understand. Your job is to tell an interesting story. In the end, every single experiment, every data point, it's all just a piece of a bigger narrative. You are the storyteller. Following these steps doesn't just help you rate a paper, it helps you find and share the fascinating story that your research has been waiting to tell all along. So the only question left is, how are you going to tell yours?